Continuing with the CONCACAF Gold Cup, we pick up the discussion by zoning in on the tournament's opener between hosts United States and Jamaica at Soldier Field in Chicago on Saturday. The Reggae Boys took the lead in the 13th minute through a Damian Lowe header after debutant Damari Gray delivered a peach of a free kick. They had a golden opportunity, the Jamaicans, to extend their advantage, but Leon Bailey saw his penalty saved by the American custodian Matt Turner before turning the rebound wide. The American unit grew into the game in the second half and they left it late to equalize. Substitute Brandon Vasquez rescuing a point for the United States of America. Reggae Boys head coach Hamir Hallgrimsson had mostly positive thoughts after the match.
I think looking at it after the match, it's kind of 2 lost points. You feel that way when you have the victory. In retrospect, I think though a draw was fair, so we cannot complain. We said before the match that a point would be a good result for us. A first game in a competition like this, it is important you don't lose, because then the second match is going to be a do-or-die match. So, yeah, the feeling is 2 lost points now. But in fairness, I think both in Mexico and this one, even though we could have and should have maybe won, a draw is a fair result. And I have to give, and I want to give US credit. There was a lot of energy in their team. I think that was where they had the upper hand. They are in season, young, energetic team. A lot of our players are coming from a break from their season, so I knew this game would be tricky. But I'm really glad we came out of it without injuries, and I know we will grow as we go in the competition. So I'm quite happy. I'm quite happy in the end. Tomorrow, I think I will be more happy than now.
The Reggae Boys head coach Hamir Hallgrimsson, despite falling behind, USA head coach BJ Callahan insists his team was always calm.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we're confident in the processes of how we prepare for the game and how we, talk as a staff and talk with the players to make adjustments. So in terms of the feeling in the locker room at halftime, it was calm. We knew it was clear what we needed to do. And as long as we were able to give that information in a calm way and in a clear way for roles and responsibilities, I think you then saw a good second half performance by the group.
Yes, Simon Evans is still with us while Lejay Williams joins us in studio. Simon, let me start with you. Varying opinions on the Reggae Boys' performance in this game against the United States of America. There are those who think very good performance because we weren't expecting much, or they weren't expecting much going into the tournament, especially given that a number of the players hadn't played together enough before. Then there are others who say, listen, this was a very good performance from the Reggae Boys, a match that they should have won. How did you see it, especially when some are saying it was a USB team? You should be beating a second-string American team. How did you see it?
Well, second-string US teams have won this competition on several occasions, haven't they?
Thank you very much, Simon.
Yeah, and they have an enormous player pool to choose from. And really, you wouldn't be surprised if they were to go and compete with Mexico for the title, as often happens in these tournaments. Having said that, I was impressed by Jamaica, particularly the first half performance. I thought the first 20 minutes, half an hour was pretty much dominant, and the shape looked good. The opportunities were there. They get the goal, and then you think if Leon Bailey can put that penalty away or the rebound, which rather unfortunate, went to his wrong foot, and the right foot looked a little bit weak there, didn't it? If that had gone in, then at 2-0, you can really see being able to defend and just defend that lead, and I think they would have been comfortable winners. But one goal wasn't enough, and I think you could feel it coming a little bit in the second half. The impetus and the momentum went out of the performance a little bit. There's tactical things we can talk about. I think there was maybe a little bit too much use of Michail Antonio. He's like a magnet to the ball, isn't he? He's such a good target to have, but maybe a little bit overused. There could have been a little bit more progression through the midfield at times. But I think, it's not a bad result, really, is it? I mean, it all comes down to that game against Trinidad, and Jamaica's destiny in this group is really in their own hands now.
Yeah, Lejay, how did you see it?
Yeah, I agree with Simon mostly. There were a lot of positive things that we could take from that performance. Obviously, there were negatives as well. But I do think largely the positives could have outweighed the negatives, especially if we did go on to keep the victory. But in terms of our shape, I think it was really good in a defensive sense. In terms of what we were trying to do attacking-wise, especially within the first 30 minutes, I think that was really good as well. But during the second half, as the coach mentioned, there were some fitness issues, I think, especially in comparison to the USA team, who he said are in the middle of their MLS season, or wherever they're playing. Most of those players are in the middle of their season, so naturally they would be more fit and more sharp to go on and really push for the result, and that's what happened. But I think we did well largely, and yeah, I think there are much more positives to take away from this performance than negatives.
Yeah, a few things that stood out to me, Simon. One, Hallgrimsson not making a change, well, with the exception of the forced change for Amari Bell, until the Americans equalized in the 88th minute. And then when those changes were made, one of the players taken off was Demarai Gray, who I felt if you needed someone to win the match at that stage, he is the type of player who could provide a moment of brilliance to help you do that. What did you make of Coach Hallgrimsson's moves tactically as the game went on?
Well, I think, when you're talking about the fitness levels, then you have to question those late substitutions, don't you? Because you will be, the momentum seemed to go out of the performance a little bit around the hour mark. You started to feel that the US were really coming back into the game, and that might have been a time to put some fresher legs on there, so you can question that one. Demarai Gray, I really like him as a player, but it was, he did look a little bit like he was getting to know things and feel his way through with new teammates and so on. He wasn't always in the game as much as you would have wanted. So I wasn't massively surprised to see him go off. But, I thought there were some really positive performances. It certainly wasn't the performance of a team that hasn't won for a year. It didn't look like a team that was lacking confidence or belief, and I think that's important.
Yeah. Lejay?
Yeah, once again, I agree, actually. I think in terms of that substitution, he did look a bit tired, he did look a bit leggy, as so did a lot of the players. I would have more liked him to change something in midfield, especially when he brought on Corey Burke. I would have more liked him to change something in midfield. I think Latibo there in the second half, although he played really well in the first, I think he looked a bit leggy, moving around, moving laterally in the second half. I think Lambert played really well, so I would have wanted more fresh legs, maybe taking off one of the attacking players and bringing on Johnson then around the 65th minute or so. But apart from that, it's really tough. I think the Johnson move for Demarai Gray was more to see out the game as opposed to trying to win it, because once again we heard the coach speaking about that this point to be really good for the team, and I think getting a point as opposed to getting a loss, we saw Gray losing a couple of his markers during the game. That happened for the USA goal, so I think he was just trying to avoid a loss. This draw is very beneficial for them, and if they can get over Trinidad and Tobago, as Simon said, this result would be excellent for Jamaica.
Simon, I want to put this question to you because here in the Caribbean, there is a sense of a lack of respect for USA's football. They've played 11 World Cup tournaments. They've reached a round of 16 about 4 times, and I sense that, especially in the weekend situation where it wasn't a full-strength USA team, which you alluded to earlier on, that a lot of Caribbean people feel that, we should be able to beat them. But it's not as easy as that, isn't it? Given the organization and the kind of consistent quality that the USA displays in CONCACAF football. We're not talking about world football here. This is a CONCACAF tournament, and the USA has to be respected.
Absolutely, and just look at the players they had up front. Jesus Ferreira, he's on a big contract, experienced Major League Soccer player. Brandon Vasquez coming off the bench, not even getting a start in that team. He scored. He was the top scorer in Major League Soccer last year, I think. With he had 18 goals for Cincinnati. Should have gone to the World Cup, in my opinion. So they have players drawn from a huge pool now, and people have to remember as well the resources that the United States can draw on in football. When you compare it to to European nations, it's one comparison. But when you compare it within CONCACAF, they are the giants. They have the resources to have academies at every club. They have youth teams for every club playing in national championships and so on. You know, we're not talking about 20, 25 years ago where soccer in America was, you know, a semi-professional sport. It's fully professional now and at a high level. And so you're talking about a tier of players. The top tier for the American team, I saw them in Las Vegas winning the CONCACAF Nations League. They're nearly all playing in Europe, in Serie A and in the Premier League. So the second tier are the players who are hoping to get those moves, who are on the edge of the national team and hoping to get in there and be the next one to go and play for Pulisic, like Pulisic at Chelsea and so on.
Yeah.
So they're good players we're talking about. They're one of the favourites for this tournament, whether they play a second or a third for that matter.
Yeah, I understand you, Simon, and I agree with you. Lige, the MLS, I suspect that the quality of the MLS has improved significantly in the past 10 or 15 years. Right now, we have just a handful of Caribbean players in the MLS. I remember 10, 15 years ago, you probably had 10, 15 Caribbean players in the MLS. But this league has grown, and maybe it is that as a Caribbean region, we are not recognizing that.
Yeah, I think it would be very naive for Jamaican spectators to think that just because it isn't the top of the top American players that there isn't quality there. There is quality all across the squad. I think it's more just down to name recognition. They don't know these players because they aren't keeping up with the MLS, so maybe they think that these players aren't as good. But when
Jamaicans call the MLS Bush League, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, that's extremely unfortunate, especially because we haven't seen too many of our own players dominate that league, especially recently, apart from Andre Blake. Damian Lowe is playing really well there now. But if you look across the USA squad, Matt Miazga, who was signed to Chelsea, Sonora, who played really well, the number 7 from USA. He's a Boca Juniors Academy graduate. Matt Turner, who plays Premier League football for Arsenal. DeAndre Yedlin, who has been in the Premier League. Christian Roldan, who has been one of the best players in the MLS. Has won the MLS twice and has won the CONCACAF Champions League as well. So this USA team was filled with quality, and as Simon mentioned, a lot of these players were very young as well. They did have the experienced players like Yedlin, but a lot of these players were young, trying to get those moves into Europe, and they showed a lot of quality, not only on the ball, but their shape as well, their pressing structure. USA are a very developed nation now, as Simon said as well. So they have a lot of players to draw from, and those players showed a lot of quality in the game. I think Jamaica needs to take a little bit of a step back. We did play well. There were stuff that we could use to build on, but we can't disrespect America by saying that we should have blown them out of the water just because we have a few English Premier League players.
Yeah, one quick one before we move on from this. In my opinion, both Lige and Simon, for some reason, Leon Bailey has not been able to find his best when he is playing for the national team. Can you put your finger on why he hasn't been able to deliver high-level performances for the Reggae Boys?
Well, I think this comes down to the expectation thing again.
Yeah.
Because if you put things into perspective, he hasn't been playing well for Aston Villa as well as of late. And yes, it's a different caliber of opponent when coming into CONCACAF. And he hasn't played well for Jamaica largely so far. But and I know this is going to be an unpopular opinion. I was saying it on Saturday as well. I don't think he was that poor against the USA. I don't think many Jamaican players played that badly.
By the way, I actually think that this was one of Leon's better games for Jamaica. There are some moments that you could point to that he definitely should have done better at, including the penalty, maybe an opportunity in that first half to release Gray or Michael Antonio either on the right or left, and he missed that towards the back end of the first half. But I thought overall it was one of his better games. But I also think he is a much better player than what he has delivered in the national colours. I don't know what you think, Simon, and maybe you can speak specifically to what you thought of his performance against the USA on Saturday night.
Yeah, there was one little passage, actually, the commentators on Fox who were broadcasting the game in the United States where Bailey got out of the corner and he did 2 nutmegs straight after each other, and they were going wild about that, showed it as a replay and saying, you know, what outstanding technique and the player has, and which he does. He does. I just get the feeling with him, it's the same Aston Villa, that he likes the ball at his feet. He likes it being delivered to him with a little bit of space and the chance to run at somebody, getting the defender on their back foot. And it doesn't always happen like that, especially in CONCACAF football where there's a lot of play in transition, there's not a lot of possession football, and you're not going to get the ball always clean at your feet. You might have to challenge for it and pick up a loose ball and so on. And I think maybe he has to adjust a little bit to that kind of football, because he's grown up obviously playing Bundesliga and then playing playing in the Premier League, and so it is a different style of football. Maybe he just has to get used to that rhythm of it.
Yeah, don't worry, Simon. I just sent you a quick message. There were two other games on the weekend, with Mexico comfortably beating Honduras by 4-0, and Haiti leaving it very late, netting a 98th minute winner in a 2-1 triumph over guest team Qatar. Mexico, guys, let me start there, Simon. Extremely impressive, or Honduras poor?
Both, I think, really. But Mexico came out really, really fast. They scored after 51 seconds. They looked like the Mexico who've been so poor recently, haven't they, Mexico? And the Nations League side that they had out were completely dominated by the United States. This was a Mexico team that looked in full of full stadium, the crowd, 60,000 behind them. It felt like Mexico were back.
Yeah, Mexico were extremely impressive. They did a lot of good work, and there was a lot of talk before this game about the fans, especially back home, lighting a fire under them after they lost to the USA in the Nations League, and they really showed it today. They were really intense on Sunday, rather. They were really intense. They played some really good football, and just judging off the last 6 editions of the tournament where them and USA have flip-flopped between who's winning, I think if you're a betting man and seeing that USA won the last one, there's nowhere better place to put a bet than Mexico to win this one now.
Yeah, I think the last time the USA successfully defended this title, 2007, so it has been a while. Haiti, I thought they were unfortunate to go behind, but they showed some real guts in coming from behind and getting the better of the guest team Qatar. How impressed were you with them?
Yeah, I was. I thought they played with really good organisation. And I thought, you have to put that one in context as well, haven't you? I mean, although Qatar did poorly at the World Cup and sort of froze on the big stage a little bit, they went into it as Asian champions. So Qatar, they're the guest team in the CONCACAF Gold Cup, and maybe people aren't really looking at them as a team who might do something. But that's a really impressive win from Haiti, and I thought, they look strong, because we've seen Haiti teams in the past that have had 2 or 3 excellent individuals, and then there's just not been that strength in the side and not enough of a team structure to get them through. This was a good test for them, and they came through it with a really good team performance.
Yeah. Simon, quickly, because we're fast running out of time, I wanted to get your favourite for this CONCACAF Gold Cup. Who are you picking to go all the way?
I think Mexico will do it this time. What we saw in that first game indicated this is a different bunch of players than they had in the Nations League. I think there's some hunger there. They've got an interim manager there now, and he's fighting for his job. I think they're fired up. They've got good quality, and I think they'll probably edge it. Yeah,
and Leger, who are you picking?
I see Sir Lance with the green jacket. I'm almost tempted, but yeah, Mexico. Different green, Mexico.
Yeah, and I think Lance said that he was going with the USA on Friday. Is that what you said,
Yes,
Lance?
I did. That's right.
You said you were going with the USA, and I said that I would be going with Canada. They haven't started their campaign yet, but...
no, you said Jamaica.
Yeah, you didn't say that on air, Ricardo?
Jamaica.
Yeah.
On air, yes, you said Jamaica.
Clearly, guys, if I say Jamaica, that's because I am Jamaican.
No, I don't. No, that's not how I received it. You were asked a specific question as to who were your choices to win, and you pointed on your Jamaica shirt, and you did this, Jamaica.
Well, Sir Lance, you're being a little bit disingenuous,
I
right?
am?
Yes, because you know very well that we had a bet inside the zone room, and I clearly said I expected Jamaica to get to the semi-finals.
Yeah, but the semi-finals is on the way to the title.
But
so that by itself doesn't say they wouldn't win?
It's not the same thing as the title. Simon, can you bail Lance out as we go to this break? Because I don't know what he's about.
You have to follow your heart. I think I can tell where you're going with this, and your heart is telling you Jamaica is going to go all the way, and you're just backing away from that a little bit now. So I think you've got to stick to your guns.
You know what my producer is telling me? It's time for a break. We'll be back on the Sports Mag Zone.
Stay with Sportsmax on YouTube and follow us on all social pages for updates, news and entertainment.